There are moments in life when heaven feels closed. You pray and nothing happens. You cry and no answer comes. You wait and all you hear is silence. You begin to wonder, did God forget me? Did I do something wrong? Why is he quiet when I need him the most? If you've ever felt like your prayers were bouncing off the ceiling, this message is for you. Because sometimes God's silence is not rejection, it's direction. It's not that he doesn't care. It's that he's doing something deeper than your eyes can see. Let me tell you a story. A woman once said, I stopped praying because I felt like God stopped listening. She had prayed for years for a child. Nothing happened. She prayed for a job, for healing, for peace, and every time, the only answer she got was silence. She said, it's like heaven blocked my number. But one day, while sitting alone, she heard a small voice in her heart say, Child, I never stopped listening. I was working in silence. Sometimes, God works the loudest in the quietest seasons. Let's look at Job, the man who did everything right. Yet everything went wrong. He prayed, he gave, he served God, and then one day he lost it all, his wealth, his health, his children, his peace. And when he cried out, God said nothing. For 37 chapters in the book of Job, heaven is silent. No voice, no angel, no comfort, just silence. Imagine that. The same God who bragged about Job's faithfulness now goes quiet when Job needs him the most. Job sat in ashes, scraping his wounds, asking, God, why? But God didn't answer. Not immediately. Because sometimes the silence of God is his classroom. It's where he teaches you trust. It's where faith grows up. It's where you learn to believe even when you don't understand. Job didn't know that his silence was being watched by heaven, that his endurance was proving a point to the enemy, that his pain was preaching a sermon that would last for thousands of years. If God had spoken too soon, Job might never have discovered the depth of his own faith. The silence was not punishment. It was preparation. Let's pause here for a moment. When God is silent, your emotions will tell you he's absent. But faith whispers, he's closer than you think. You see, silence doesn't mean God has stopped working. It means he's doing something in a place words can't reach. Maybe right now you're in a job season. You've done everything you know how to do. You've prayed, fasted, waited, and all you get is silence. You scroll through social media, and it feels like everyone else's prayers are being answered except yours. You're tired. You're frustrated. You start asking, God, why won't you just say something? But here's the truth. When God is silent, he's watching your response. Because your reaction in silence reveals your level of trust. Job didn't curse God. He questioned. Yes, he wept. Yes, but he didn't walk away. And when God finally spoke, everything Job lost was restored and more. There's something powerful about staying when you don't hear anything. When you keep praying with no answer. When you keep believing with no sign. That's the kind of faith that moves heaven. Sometimes God stays silent because the test isn't about what you hear. It's about what you hold on to. Can you hold on when you don't understand? Can you trust his heart when you can't trace his hand? If you're watching this, maybe you're standing in that silence right now. The waiting room of heaven. The quiet season where nothing makes sense. But I need you to hear this. God has not abandoned you. He's writing a story you can't yet read. And sometimes the silence is the ink he uses. So don't mistake his silence for absence. He's closer in the quiet than you realize. And soon, the same voice that was silent will speak again. Not to explain the pain, but to reveal the purpose. Because when God is silent, he's still speaking. Just not in words, but in ways your spirit will one day understand. There's a strange pain that comes when God hides his face. When prayers go unanswered. When worship feels empty. When even scripture seems quiet. It's the season where heaven feels closed. You go to church and everyone seems to be touched. Everyone, except you. You kneel to pray and the words feel dry. You wait for a sign and nothing happens. And deep down you start to whisper, God, where are you? Let me take you to the story of Joseph. Joseph had dreams, powerful dreams. Dreams that spoke of greatness, of influence, of destiny. But after the dreams came silence. No angel, no prophecy, no confirmation, just betrayal, just pain, just waiting. His brothers threw him into a pit, and as he cried out, heaven said nothing. Then he was sold into slavery. Still nothing. Then falsely accused and locked in prison. Still silence. But what Joseph didn't know was that every silent season was positioning him closer to the palace. The silence of God is not always a no. Sometimes it's his way of saying, trust me, I'm preparing something better than what you're asking for. If Joseph had escaped the pit, he would have missed the palace. If he had avoided the prison, he would have missed Pharaoh's throne. Sometimes God keeps silent because if he explained, we'd run from the process. So he hides his hand, but never his heart. You see, silence is not the absence of activity. It's the disguise of destiny. God was not ignoring Joseph. He was aligning him. He was creating a divine chain reaction. A pit, a sale, a palace, a famine, a nation saved. All from a season where God seemed to say nothing. But Joseph stayed faithful in the silence. He didn't let pain make him bitter. He didn't let disappointment stop him from serving. He kept interpreting other people's dreams, even when his own dreams seemed dead. That's the secret to surviving divine silence. Keep serving in the dark, because when God is silent, he's watching what you'll do with what's left. And then after years of silence, the prison doors opened. Pharaoh sent for Joseph. In a single day, the same man who was forgotten was remembered. The same man who was silent in the pit was now speaking in the palace. Do you see it? Heaven was never empty. It was just waiting for the right moment to echo. Now, let's talk about Hannah, a woman who knew the agony of unanswered prayer. She prayed for a child year after year. Her rival mocked her. Her husband didn't understand her pain, and God stayed silent. But what Hannah didn't realize was that the womb God closed in silence was being reserved for something sacred. Some wombs are closed not because God said no, but because he's waiting for the right time to say yes. If Hannah had given birth earlier, Samuel might have never been born at the exact moment Israel needed a prophet. God's silence wasn't punishment. It was perfect timing. When God seems to delay, he's not denying you. He's defining you. He's shaping your prayer life. He's deepening your faith. He's training your patience. He's growing your spiritual muscles. Because what comes after the silence will require the strength you build during the silence. Hannah kept coming back, again and again, even when her prayers were soaked in tears. And then one day, heaven broke its silence. The same lips that once whispered pain now whispered a name, Samuel. And Samuel became the voice of God in a generation that had grown deaf. Imagine that the woman who endured divine silence gave birth to divine sound. Her silence produced a voice that would change history. So if it feels like heaven has been quiet in your life, remember Joseph, remember Hannah, remember that silence does not mean forgotten. Sometimes God withholds sound so he can build strength. Sometimes he hides his voice so you can find his presence. Because in silence, your roots grow deeper. And the deeper your roots, the higher he can take you. Maybe God hasn't said anything because he's waiting for you to stop panicking and start trusting. Maybe he's building your character before he gives you your crown. Maybe his silence is not rejection, it's redirection. Every delay, every quiet night, every unanswered prayer, they are not wasted moments. They are sacred pauses in God's symphony of destiny. When heaven feels closed, remember, the silence of God is never empty. It's full of answers yet to unfold. It's full of preparation. It's full of purpose. And just like Joseph, just like Hannah, your story will make sense, but only in hindsight. So if God is silent right now, don't rush the process. Don't run from the quiet. Rest in it. Because one day, when his voice finally breaks through the stillness, you'll realize his silence was the sound of love working behind the scenes. There's one more story we must visit, the story of Jesus himself. If anyone understood the silence of God, it was him. He healed the sick. He raised the dead. He fed multitudes. He obeyed completely. And yet, when he hung on the cross, suspended between heaven and earth, there was silence. No voice from heaven. No angel to rescue him. Just darkness, pain, and a question. My God, why have you forsaken me? In that moment, the Son of God experienced the silence of his own Father. And yet, even in that silence, salvation was being written. God was silent not because he abandoned Jesus, but because he was fulfilling a promise that required silence. If heaven had spoken that day, if angels had intervened, the cross would have been interrupted, and redemption would never have been finished. Sometimes, silence means God is letting a process reach completion. Jesus endured the silence, so that when you face yours, you would never be alone in it. That's why Hebrews says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weakness. He knows what silence feels like. He knows the ache of unanswered prayers. He knows the heaviness of waiting." Maybe right now, you're standing at your own cross, a place of confusion, pain, or disappointment. And you prayed, cried, fasted, and waited, but heaven hasn't said a word. Listen to me. This silence is not your ending. It's your refining. The silence of God is not the evidence of his absence. It's the assurance of his strategy. He's not quiet because he's forgotten you. He's quiet because he's finishing something behind the scenes. When God is silent, he's teaching you to trust his character, not just his voice. He's inviting you to walk by faith, not by sound. Faith doesn't always hear. It believes anyway. Faith doesn't always see. It trusts anyway. Faith says, even if I can't trace him, I will still trust him. Because sometimes the test of faith is not how loud you can shout in worship, but how still you can stand in silence. Look at your life for a moment. Every unanswered prayer you thought broke you, built you. Every door that didn't open, redirected you. Every season where you felt alone, prepared you. Because now, when you look back, you see that his silence had fingerprints all over it. The silence taught you how to pray. The silence taught you how to wait. The silence taught you how to depend on him and not people. And now you're stronger. Now you see differently. Now you're ready. If God had spoken when you wanted him to, you would have settled for something smaller than what he planned. His silence was mercy in disguise. So don't curse the quiet, bless it. Don't run from the stillness, rest in it. You may not hear God right now, but trust me, he hears you. He has heard every word. Every tear has been counted. Every sigh has been noticed. Every long night has been written in his book. And one day, the silence will break, and you'll see that he was never silent. He was speaking in ways words could never capture. Maybe this is what God wants you to know today. His silence is not the end of the story. It's just a page before the breakthrough. When God is silent, he's teaching you to lean into his presence, not just his promises. When God is silent, he's teaching you to worship without results, to believe without proof, to walk without sight. And when the time is right, the same God who is silent will speak so clearly that you'll understand why he waited. You will understand why the relationship ended. You will understand why the job didn't work. You will understand why you were delayed. You will understand why heaven seemed quiet. Because God was not punishing you. He was preparing you. You thought you were buried, but you were only being planted. And the same silence that covered the seed will one day echo with the sound of resurrection. So, when you can't hear God, keep walking. When you can't see him, keep trusting. When you can't feel him, keep believing. Because faith isn't built in the noise, it's born in the silence. And someday soon, when the silence finally breaks, you'll lift your hands and say, now I understand, he was there all along. This is Roi Network, where we remind you that the God who sees still sees you, even in the silence.